Hello, everyone. Welcome to the dark side. I'm JVL. The Mistress of Darkness, A.B. Stoddard, is out today, so we're going to do something fun. I've brought in our Bulwark colleague, Will Salatan, who is the most optimistic person on staff, probably even including Sarah Longwell. And I'm going to break him in front of you for your viewing pleasure. I'm gonna bring up things that are happening in the world, and Will's gonna try to explain why actually they're okay and it's not so bad as you think. And then by the end, he'll be crying. So that's our game today. Will, thanks for playing. How are you?
I am ready to defy you. I am because I believe, of course, I believe that I will not be broken, but whether I will be.
Yeah, that's right. So we now have some polling, some post conviction polling. Donald Trump convicted of 34 felonies, sentencing coming up. He still has 3 other cases looming against him, all of which everybody seems to say are more serious and damning even than the one he's just been convicted of. And the polling is out, and it looks like maybe he's lost 0.8 of a point. So this is where we get into a weird thing where, and Sarah and I have this conversation, Will, where I say it is entirely possible that his conviction could cost him the election because, like we're fighting over a total of like 4 percentage points in the middle of the electorate. And that would be great. It would be amazing, right? If we held off Trump authoritarianism for one more time, and great. But on the other hand, we now see that it's perfectly clear that Americans are happy to vote for a convicted felon who attempted a coup.
Right.
Maybe not like 55% are willing to vote for them, but somewhere between like 44 and 48% have absolutely no problem with it. And that is something that I don't think Americans realized about themselves 7 years ago. Right. I think 7 years ago, you go back and rewind the tape and you just sort of say, so this guy's going to attempt a coup and then he's going to be convicted of a bunch of felonies. And you're going to have a president with a strong economy, an incumbent president with a strong economy. How bad is this felon coup plotter going to lose? And you'd be like, oh, well, he'll lose by 15. It'll be worse than Reagan Mondale. And that's just not the case. That's not who America is. That's not who we are. We are a country that is seriously considering electing the convicted felon who attempted the coup.
Right. Okay, so I came today with 2 props, and I'm going to let you choose which one I go with. All right. I've got my pony.
Yes.
The trademark pony. I can give you the pony take. I also brought the opposite of the pony, or the ex-pony, which is the glue. We won't say how the glue was made, but it has something to do with the pony. Not this pony, but the one that came before. So I'm going to let you choose whether you want the pony take first or the glue take.
Let me hear your pony take. I want to hear the pony take.
My pony take is this could have been a lot worse, right? This post-election polling. Specifically, after the verdict came in, at the time, 35 million and then 50 million, and now God knows how many $1 million came to Donald Trump because Republicans told us there are so many people out there who recognized that this was an illegitimate political prosecution, a persecution of a former president, and America was rising up. And they told us, these are not just our normal donors. These are new donors. These are new people. So our base is expanding. So this whole thing has backfired and it's going to elect Trump. That's what they told us. That is not what this polling shows. This polling shows us that Trump has definitely not expanded his base, the people who are actually supporting him. So this, you say, we've learned something about who we are as a country. We have not learned so far that we are such a bad country that more people flock to a convicted felon than before he was a convicted felon. That's as good as I got for you on the pony side.
So if that's the pony, then the glue's got to be pretty good. Let me hear it.
The glue. So this is a topic where you and I are probably more in agreement, and I am probably more surprised by the post-election polls than you are. And so for people who aren't familiar, Your pessimism is a very healthy way to be pleasantly surprised when things don't turn out as badly as you expected. And conversely, my optimism is an unhealthy thing because I am constantly unpleasantly surprised and dismayed. So I am fairly upset and dismayed by these polls because I hoped that America would be better than this. And as you say, we're not.
Nope.
These numbers in this poll, as you say, yeah, 8/10 was a joke, but you're not far off, as you know. About 2%. There's been about a 2% shift in the polls. And not only do we see this statistically, but within the same poll, New York Times, CNO, they went back and repolled their people. And it went from like, in that sample, Trump +3 to Trump +1. Not great, Bob, right? Not great. And we're left with an election in which it has made a difference on the margins, but maybe not enough to prevent the convicted felon from getting elected. As you say, I didn't expect this from my country. If I'm in some European democracy and I've been watching America and I'm like, what the hell is wrong with America? Has America gone nuts? You're going to bring this guy back after he attempted a coup? I don't come away from these numbers thinking, phew, it looks like Joe Biden may eke out a 50-49 win. I come away from this thinking America is right on the edge of sliding over into authoritarianism. And I personally, I don't want to say this about my country, but if I'm in Europe looking at America, I would say we shouldn't count too much on the Americans because that country could flip over at any moment. Sorry, that's my take.
That's, it's interesting you were to say that because they just had a whole bunch of elections in Germany and in France and Italy. And what we have seen there is the far-right parties all doing exceedingly well. In Germany, Olaf Scholz got crushed by the AfD. The AfD is an isolationist party that borders into like actual pro-Putinism. In France, the National Rally Party absolutely crushed things. Emmanuel Macron, who is term limited in that he cannot run after 2027, has called for snap elections in July in an attempt to hold off Marine Le Pen. We'll talk about her again in a moment. The idea being that maybe he can beat her in July, but that if he doesn't, then she only gets 3 years to like blow up France. And we know how close she is to Putin. And then in Italy, Giorgia Meloni is just, riding high. And so we now have the far-right parties in charge in Hungary, the Netherlands, Greece, Bulgaria. And in most of these cases, the far-right parties are ambivalent towards or outright hostile to Ukraine. And this is happening in a moment of basic prosperity. Like, we're not in the middle of a financial crisis. Europe has experienced more inflation than we have in America. Nobody has gotten as good an economy as we have right here in America. USA, right? And but just like here, everybody's disgruntled. And so they just think maybe we'll try this fascist stuff. Like, it's been a good 100 years almost since we've had any fascism. And maybe it's better now.
Okay. So you said the AfD, the German party, were isolationists and close to maybe being pro-Putin. But you didn't say Nazis. You didn't say Nazis.
They're not Nazis yet. That's right.
They're not Nazis. So just let's hold on to not Nazis. The National Front's another matter, right?
National Front, actual Nazis.
Yeah. So
Nazi sympathizers, Nazi adjacent.
So I'm going to give you my best pony defense of these elections, which is, okay, the far right did too well, and that's alarming, particularly given the fact that the underlying we're not talking about Weimar Germany here. Things were not so desperate that you needed to find somebody even, a crazy.
People are taking vacations.
Right. And in Europe, of course, they take longer vacations because they really work there. So that's not good, but they did better than expected. But the center right did, from my understanding of what I've read, the center right did hold their power, and there is still enough. Like the liberals lost was what I read, but the center right did okay, and weirdly the progressive third of the center bloc did okay. So they're still holding, and they did it apparently by co-opting issues that the right was using. One of them being migration. That's kind of the obvious one. So we've been talking here about Nazis and, racism and that kind of thing. I don't think everybody in the United States or in Europe who thinks that migration needs to be tightened, that they need better control of migration, is a racist. I don't think that's the central driving factor for a lot of people. I mean, for some people it is. There's always been the racist element. But I think it is good that liberals in the United States, in the form of Joe Biden with his latest border security proposal, and in Europe are, and when I say liberal here, I'm including the center right. I think it is good that they are trying to take control of the migration issue and assure the public that they don't have to turn to the actual Nazis to get control of their borders. What do you think?
Will, what in our experience together has led you to believe that Joe Biden could possibly get credit for anything that he does in regards to immigration? Half the country, literally half the country, says that unemployment is at a 50-year high. 62% of the country says we're in a recession. These things are just objectively not true. And some large majority also feels like inflation is still raging out of control and increasing. Again, just not true. So why do you think, if Joe Biden had done any of the things that anybody would like to prescribe to him on immigration, that people's views of this would be any more, I should say, tethered to reality? Because I don't see anything, literally anything, any issue set in which the American voters are thinking in any terms other than vibes.
So, all right, I brought my pony and I brought my glue, but I did not bring what I really need at this moment, which is a little framed photograph of Sarah Longwell. So I'm going to try to channel Sarah. It is not true that nothing matters. It is not true that nothing has an effect. It does have an effect, even if it's 2%. It's more than zero. In this case, what I've seen on the border stuff in Biden's case was the CBS YouGov poll, which showed that 7 Democrats supported what he was doing by 76-24. Independents also supported it. People liked this. People agreed that this was a good thing. I don't remember seeing what the effect was on the election, but this, as we know, is like one of the major issues that the Republicans have been using against Biden. It's a major issue that has hurt him. I think statistically, you can find evidence in the polling that it is helping him. That it's new. This has just come out, and it's probably going to lose he's probably going to lose in the courts, right? So, but he will have tried. He will have shown that. I think there are some Democrats and a lot of independents who are upset about the border situation, who see chaos. People who even Democrats who live in New York or Chicago, and it's like, we got too many people coming in. It's completely out of control. This is people just showing up at the border. This needs to be orderly. Okay. These are not racist. These are just want
can I ask a question?
Yeah.
What is the last year in which the American southern border was managed in an orderly manner?
Well, before, in like the Bush years, if you go back to when the numbers magically, dramatically increased. Look, my take on this.
It's never been orderly. The system has been broken for forever.
Yeah, but
this is the fight Sarah and I have all the time. Okay. It's broken because we're an incredibly rich and economically powerful country, and we have a very, very long border. And everybody always wants to come here and will always want to come here unless this turns into a shit show, at which point the demand for people coming in will lower. Like if we don't have jobs and robust growth, and that would be a sign. There is no past in which we could return to when everything was done right. That doesn't exist.
But statistically, there's been a massive increase over the last decade in people coming in. Sure. I think it's a matter of the cartels. I think the United States put out bring us you're tired, you're weary. And we had an asylum system, and it was exploited by some, but it wasn't exploited to this extent. Cartels are selling people from other countries on, we will get you American asylum. It comes from America for free, but the cartels are charging an arm and a leg for it. It's a great business, and the business has just exploded over the last decade. And so I think that is what has changed. To your question, have we ever had control of it? We didn't really have that great control, but the problem wasn't as big. Now we really do need to get some control over it. And my concern is that in the United States and in Europe, if the center parties, and in this country we only got one center party left, if the center party doesn't speak to that issue and establish some sense of control, the crazy right-wing party will win more power. And that's the danger. So when I look at the European elections, I'm pleased that the center-right co-opted that issue and a couple of others and made the damage less than it would have been.
I hope they get credit for it. Again, I just don't see a universe in which Biden can get credit for it. Here's the thing which really gets me. If you are a pro-democracy person in France, you have beaten Marine Le Pen in 2012. You beat her in 2017. You beat her in 2022. And now you got to beat her again. And this is the problem with these fascist cults of personality, is that they just get to keep taking bites at the apple, and they can lose as many times as they can lose. They only have to win once. And that's basically what we are at with Trumpism, right? I mean, Hillary Clinton gets more votes. Obviously, that doesn't matter, but, basically loses on him drawing to an inside straight. Joe Biden beats him soundly. He's back again. If Biden beats him again, so long as Trump is alive, he will be the nominee in 2028. Like, there is no appetite in the Republican movement to move on from him. There's something really depressing, and this is like an Anne Applebaum how autocracies work thing, where they just exhaust you because they don't go away. They aren't cowed, right? There's no world in which they think, oh well, I guess the people have spoken. The market doesn't want what I'm selling. We got to change tack, and that doesn't exist in a failed state like the Republican Party. And all it takes is one recession or one scandal from a normal Democratic type politician, and your authoritarian's right back there knocking at the door.
Okay, I got to agree with you here. I mean, I'll you're not even breaking me on this one. I mean, reality is breaking me, but that's what you would say, right? What's breaking me is your pessimism is most vindicated when it's about human nature, right? People are not any better than we were.
Pessimism. I just watch people. Right. I just see them. That's my superpower. I see people as they are.
So, we go back a century, and we had obviously the fascist explosions of that time. We're having some fascist outbursts now. It's not as bad as it was, but it ain't because of people. People are not better than they were back then. And the willingness of people to continue to vote for the Le Pens and the Trumps, I think, vindicates your dark view of human nature. And in addition to which, these parties, JVL, the fact that they're not about governing, that they're just about resentments and grievances, that helps them. There is no accountability for a non-governing grievance party, right?
No.
Trump didn't. I've been looking at when the Republican primaries, when the rap on Trump from DeSantis and Nikki Haley and others, part of it was he didn't get anything done that he said he would get done, and his voters didn't care. It wasn't about getting things done. It wasn't about solving anything.
Let me. I want to take you down a level though, because you're not dark enough. When we had those fascist eruptions, which began in the 30s, really in the 20s, that was in the aftermath of the First World War and unbelievable devastation, and then the sort of failures of the peace, and there were people in Germany, in Weimar Germany, who were in desperate straits, right? And so they were casting about for a way out. That is not the case in any of the places we are talking about. we are seeing people turn to fascism not out of desperation, but out of decadence. And I don't know that there's a historical analog for that.
Can you say more about what you mean by decadence there?
I just mean like everybody's fat and happy, right? Everybody's fat and happy. It's like, oh, this will be a real gas. This guy Trump will say anything, you know. It's something else. Moving on, Clarence Thomas over the weekend. Somebody put it all together. $4 million in undisclosed gifts from our finest Supreme Court justice, and there is no way to have any accountability. He's just going to sit there until he's ready to retire, or until the Lord calls him home, and then Donald Trump can appoint his replacement when he's president again. That's really, it is, we have discovered over the last 7 years that our entire system is basically run on the honor system, right? You know, we thought we had all these rules that would keep us safe and all of these norms and codes of behavior. And, you know, well, if a president did something really terrible, members of his own party would go to him in the Oval Office and say, Mr. President, you're going to be impeached. You have to resign. And the president would resign, right? And what we have discovered is actually somebody would just like, no, actually, you don't have to. You can just say no, you know, and everything will be okay. And we're seeing that even with the Supreme Court now. And it's really something. Well, what are we going to do now that we've all discovered that Supreme Court justices can basically behave like Matt Schlapp?
Okay. All right. So this is going to be is a challenge coming up with a pony for this. First of all, he has now disclosed the gifts he got from, right? So let's take that. Secondly, have we been able to trace? I haven't seen a specific ruling to. I mean, I don't remember the Fortis case, but I mean, do we have an illustration of actual corruption where we can show that the gift led to a specific outcome in a case? I don't think.
I mean,
so.
The outcome seems to be that he didn't retire. You know, he kept dropping hints to people that I'm not getting enough. You know, Daddy needs a taste, and if I don't get a taste, I'm going to have to retire. And so, you know, then who knows? You might have one of those Obama people on the court or something. And so conservative world jumped to like, hey, we got to make sure Justice Thomas gets his beak wet. I mean, that seems to be what the quid pro quo was, to the extent that it was. But, it's not like if you rule on case A, B, C in manner X, Y, Z, then we will give you an RV.
Right.
That's not how this version of the corruption worked.
Right. It seems that Thomas, like Alito, is an ideologue, and the billionaires could count on his ideology to deliver.
No, he's a partisan. He's not an ideologue. I think that's very clear. People thought he was an ideologue. He's just a partisan.
I don't know
if he was if he was a conservative ideologue, he would have very, very different views of Donald Trump, but he does not.
I'll give you just one data point on that question. Clarence Thomas in the Dobbs case was the only justice who said, yeah, we should overturn Roe v. Wade. We should overrule that. And while we're at it, we should revisit all the privacy cases. Obergefell, all the other justices on the right didn't do that. They did the political thing, which was, yeah, this is not in the Constitution, but these other things that aren't literally in the Constitution, they're politically popular, so we're not going to touch them. He was like, right, let's go all the way.
He's a partisan first and ideologue second. Okay.
It's not great that we have, when I looked at the reporting on this, we have so many justices making their income outside. A lot of it's book deals. Mm-hmm. Ketanji Brown Jackson has like a $900,000 book deal. Everybody's got $100,000, $200,000, $300,000 book deals. It would be better if our justices actually just relied on their salary. We paid them what justices need to be paid. So that's not great. I'm really worried, JBL, about the delegitimation of the whole judicial system, not just the Manhattan DA's office or the jury in Manhattan or the jury in Florida or Georgia, whatever. But if the Supreme Court also gets delegitimized because the left doesn't trust it or the center doesn't trust it, I'm more worried about the public losing trust in, faith in, and respect for the judiciary than I am about a particular justice. So this guy casting his own profession and his court into disrepute is a major concern for me, irrespective of whether he did anything for it.
It's also very bad. That's also a very bad thing. Here's a way we could fix the pay gap, right? Because there is a notional pay gap. I don't know what Supreme Court justices make off the top of my head, but we could amend the Constitution to state that Supreme Court justices should be paid every year the same salary as the Ohio State football coach. Like the head coach of the Ohio's right in the middle of the country. They like their football, just, but they're a public employee. And so the Supreme Court justices have to be paid whatever he's getting paid every year. And then they shouldn't need to go out and pant after money.
Yeah.
Deal?
Yeah. Okay. That $4 million would be nothing in that calculus.
All right. Last story. The city of Amarillo, Texas. You're from Tejas. Has a proposed law that they are arguing over, in which they seek to allow citizens to sue anyone driving on their roads in an attempt to travel out of state in order to get an abortion. The county of Lubbock passed a law on this last year. This is like the abortion bounty law, where it takes the government out of the actual suing and just sort of deputizes people to collect bounties on it. They refer to this as abortion trafficking, and that these are women who are taking innocent babies out of state for the purpose of murdering them. And I'm Catholic. I'm a pro-lifer. I understand the argument, I suppose. Should they allow women to move out of state if they think they might get an abortion?
In my defense,
should they allow women to travel out of state for any reason? Because they might think they're going to go to California to Disneyland, but then decide to have an abortion while in Disneyland. And that also would be murder. So it just seems like good sense, and also not that far of a leap, to maybe lock that down to stop the abortion trafficking.
Okay, in my defense, I'm from the other end of the state. This Amarillo and El Paso, as far away as you can get from me, and still be in that's from where I'm from, not there anymore, but in Texas. Okay, so the pro-life movement has tried to avoid saying that they are about blaming women or criminalizing women, punishing women. They have this conceit that that it's always the woman is the poor victim, and she's being victimized by the abortionist or by her husband or boyfriend, or by the driver, I guess, who's taking her. So she's being trafficked would be consistent with that, right? But of course...
What if she's the driver?
See, the lesson is drive yourself.
What if she's using a Tesla and she's using the fully self-driving autonomous? Could Elon Musk then be responsible for it if she's relying on the fully self-driving Tesla to take her out of... I mean, they may sound crazy, but is it any crazier than saying that a private citizen could just be looking over the neighbor's fence and hear her saying, I think I'm going to drive to Kansas to terminate this pregnancy, and then be waiting to serve a citizen's arrest or something? I mean, all of it is crazy.
It is, which is why I'm pro-choice. So which is why I constantly want to ask pro-lifers, and I'm dying to ask you, this is what happens. If, like me, you're pro-choice, you have a lot of things you have to answer for. Well, what do you think about late-term abortions? What do you think about the partial birth abortions where it was 20 weeks and it wasn't really for a medical condition, it was just late and blah, blah. These are uncomfortable questions. If you're pro-life, it seems to me this is what you got to answer for. If you really believe it's murder, if you really believe it's killing in that way, then shouldn't you have laws against it? Shouldn't you enforce them? And wouldn't they look like this? If someone was driving out to commit an actual murder, yeah, that would be a crime. So what do you say?
I mean, I can give you the pro-life answer as I understood the pro-life movement pre-2016, which was the problem with abortion is not a problem of access, it's a problem of demand. And you can't restrict your way to getting rid of abortion. What you have to do is address the demand side. And so, you try to stop people from getting pregnant unwantedly, right? By giving contraception access. You you try to make it so that having a baby is less of a burden, and so that economic considerations don't factor into it, with more robust social services, more caring for at-risk mothers, more holding men responsible for providing child support and whatnot. In that's the way you attack the number of abortions. You attack the demand side of it, so that you make having a child less precarious. Now, there are going to be like medical exceptions and things like rape and incest. All of those things are always going to be edge cases, and they're always going to exist. And to spend your time arguing about them is useless if the goal is to, again, reduce the number of abortions. And that's what I thought the pro-life side was into. And my pro-choice friends would always tell me, you are an idiot. They just want to control women. And I would say, no, you don't understand. It's a seamless garment of life. And this is why we're against the death penalty too. And why social services are so important. My pro-choice friends would just point at me and laugh. And then Trump came, and I thought, maybe my pro-choice friends were onto something. And then COVID happened. And I realized, oh, the professional pro-lifers don't give a shit about life. They don't care at all. And then after Dobbs, when we had the rash of like immediate rushes to just codify laws as quickly as possible without any increase in spending for social services, I was like, oh, not only do they not care about life, they really do just care about controlling women. And I find it hard to read any other explanation behind the actions of the pro-life movement over the last 10 years. I guess there are plenty of people out there like me who, sincerely believe that life is precious and special, and we ought to be trying to support women and mothers and also children, and to take care of them, so that an abortion isn't a choice they feel like they have to make. But we don't have any political power. People like me, the best we can do is just work in our communities, helping out at crisis pregnancy centers and trying to take care of at-risk families and families that need help.
Well, all I have to say to you, JBL, is God bless you. I mean, if every pro-lifer thought the way you do about focusing on demand, I mean, everything you just said works within a pro-choice framework. It just emphasizes unborn life. And I admire that, respect it, and I would encourage every other pro-life person to think more like you.
Yeah, well, there are dozens of us. And it was really, the COVID stuff was what the Trump stuff sort of broke me on like, oh, they don't really care about, like the life stuff. But when COVID hit, and they were like, you can't make people wear a mask because freedom. And I was like, wait a minute, hold on. I thought we were telling people they couldn't get abortions because life was so precious. Like, we're not even willing to wear surgical masks inside Target because our freedoms are so important. Really? Something else, man. Something else. Will, I think I broke you. I think you went dark on every single one of these things. I think you've come with me down to the heart of darkness.
I've come to the extent that reality bears you out, and sadly, it often does.
Good luck, America.